For a time, when the ancient Greeks wanted an answer to a vital question, they would visit an oracle, someone who could get answers about worldly affairs from a divine patron, an authority. At other times and places, societies have put similar trust in a wide variety of individuals and institutions. Until recently, sense-making actors, like the press, academics, universities, and some faith leaders, seemed like unshakable authorities. But technological and social changes are challenging them like never before. Today's knowledge powers are digital platforms that control huge masses of data and shape our information diets with their algorithms. Then, there are the influencers, whose charisma and social media savvy enable them to shape opinion on a never-before-seen scale. This shakeup clears space for new voices to be heard, but it also makes room for a bewildering array of mis- and disinformation, including conspiracy theories. So, while our sense-making future might be more democratic, it may be harder to agree on who or what to trust.
What do all of these texts have in common? They were all written by humans. Then how are these different? They were written by machines. If you stop and think about it, that is a staggering development. We live with a growing collection of machines that make sense. They can write, diagnose diseases, make art, evaluate loan applications, and contribute to hiring decisions. And they are utterly novel participants in sense-making, with unique logics and processes. These artificial intelligences may also help revitalize our ancient sense-making partnerships with animals and plants, directly translating their sensory experiences in ways that allow us to feel what they feel. The upshot is a growing range of digital and biological partnerships capable of producing unprecedented kinds of knowledge. Such knowledge could be game-changing, even when it emerges through processes that most of us find hard to understand.
Think about where human sense-making began. In natural environments. Our senses, cognitive systems, and social tools like language evolved to help us compete and survive in those contexts. But the spaces we make sense haven't remained static. The shift from natural to built environments changed the sense we made. Buildings make different demands of our senses than natural spaces. They sustain different kinds of social relations. But that historical shift was no more dramatic than two shifts taking place right now. On one hand, climate change is transforming our planet. This means new physical conditions that will shape how we make sense of things, though maybe in ways that won't always be obvious. On the other hand, the explosion of virtual spaces, such as game worlds, virtual and augmented reality workplaces, classrooms, and parks, means entirely novel contexts, equally certain to affect the sense we make.
There is an old story about a group of people taking on an ambitious project, a tower linking heaven and earth. Their common language defined a shared reality, and as long as it lasted, progress was good. But when divine punishment splintered language and reality alike, the project collapsed. Today, our ability to agree and work together still depends on us inhabiting largely the same reality. And that depends on things like shared mental models, stories, ways of knowing, and standards for separating truth from fiction. This shared reality doesn't have to be complete, and work together still depends on us inhabiting largely the same reality. And that depends on things like shared mental models, stories, ways of knowing, and standards for separating truth from fiction. This shared reality doesn't have to be complete or perfect. but we need just enough to agree on the nature of problems, not to mention the right solutions. Currently, our shared reality seems to be shrinking. Filter bubbles and echo chambers, amplified by new technologies, undermine it. So does the loss of a unified media landscape with clear standards. Ditto the breakdown of consensus on historical narratives and ideal forms of social, political, and economic organization. This could, eventually, lead to a new and more inclusive form of shared reality. If not, a future of splintered realities may make it difficult to sustain the kind of collaboration necessary to address wicked problems.
For more information, please visit horizons.gc.ca.
Hello everyone, not sure why the video froze at the end there, but you can watch the whole thing yourself when I link it in the description. Did you like that one? That's from our old buddies Horizons Canada, a government organization, think tank. Did you like the part about the conspiracy theorists? Or how about them saying that, well, I guess that's the Tower of Babel and how it was progress, the common language, and the linking of earth and heaven there. It's just ridiculous. That was progress until it got ruined and splintered everyone up. It's amazing. That's from the government of Canada, and we're gonna look at it here. These are the same people that came up with the biodigital convergence, or convergence of biodigital technology. I'll link that as well, but yeah, let's read this. The future of sense making. I'll try to, go through it fairly quickly. Examining changes to the ways we think, act, and behave. They want to control your behavior, the way you think. They want to control it all. Here's the forward from, what's her face? Christelle Van der Elst. That is I thought I had her picture in here. No, oh, there she is. This lady who was formerly working for the World Economic Forum. All right, so let's do this. Sometimes it feels like making sense of the world grows more difficult with each passing day. Unprecedented volumes of information arrive along multiple and multiplying channels. Some of it is questionable and dangerous. Over time, Canadians could find it increasingly challenging to know who or what to trust as they make important social, economic, environmental, and political decisions. These and other ongoing disruptions to individual and collective sense-making present clear challenges for policymakers. At the same time, they offer glimpses of startling, positive sense-making futures, where our ability to understand ourselves and the complex systems that shape our lives brings radically improved outcomes for all concerned. Guided by its mandate, Policy Horizons Canada, Policy Horizons is taking shifts to our sense-making routines, capacities, tools, and contexts in order to identify key areas of change and initial policy implications. Represent the primary results of this work below. We welcome your comments and participation as we continue our foresight work on social futures. We hope you find it insightful. Oh, we do. Introduction. Oh, I'll need some water for this. Sense-making drives what people think they know, how they make decisions, and how they behave. It is at the heart of challenges to communicating information in ways that reach Canadians. It also plays a key role in overall trust in government, with long-term implications for Canadians' views on democratic institutions and science. Policy Horizons is exploring how Canadians' sense-making may change in the future. Viral disinformation and conspiracy theories pollute our information environment. They shape the way a growing number of Canadians make sense of the world, which in turn influences their social, economic, and political decisions. And these forces could become even more influential. How this came to be remains something of a puzzle. Really? Does the problem lie with technology, weak regulatory frameworks, the business models of sprawling social media platforms, or the influence of malicious actors? No, it's because you're lying sacks of shit, and we can see right through your bullshit. So maybe you should consider that. Each of these factors brings to mind for good reason. Yet if analysis stops there, it reinforces a problematic assumption that the problem lies with supply rather than demand. We assume people want rational, objective, and evidence-based content. However, current signals suggest that disinformation and conspiracy theories satisfy powerful internal needs that are not entirely rational and are otherwise not being met. In futures where supply and demand make disinformation and conspiracy theories more widespread and attractive, considering both supply and demand might be beneficial to Canadians' sense-making activities. Disinformation is just one aspect of the emerging information environment that relates to sense-making. Policy Horizons is exploring the broader question of how Canadians' sense-making may change in the future. We define sense-making as the way people gather and interpret information to give meaning to their lives and the world. Sense-making drives what people think they know, how they make decisions, and how they behave. Foresight on sense-making could help government decision-makers. For example, changes in how Canadians make sense of information could affect the ways they engage with government institutions. These changes could also alter the effectiveness of government programs and policies. Changes in sense-making could influence the ways that the government creates and organizes its own information and decision-making and communicates with Canadians and the world. Policy Horizons is exploring the future of sense-making as part of its broader line of foresight in social futures. Like all Policy Horizons work, this project aims to help the Government of Canada design policies and programs that are resilient in the face of disruptive change and robust across a range of plausible futures. The goal of this study is to assist in strategy and policy development, build anticipatory capabilities, test planning assumptions, and support informed collaborative networks on horizontal issues. This paper helps government decision makers understand how changes to sense-making could affect their specific policy context. To this end, the paper begins by explaining what we mean by sense-making, then presents some sources and areas of change in the sense-making system. It ends with questions designed to make potential connections between these changes and the broader policy landscape. What we mean by sense-making. Sense-making is how we gather information and interpret it along with our experiences to understand our world, make decisions, and take action. The term sense-making originally referred only to the sensory systems humans use to interpret physical experiences. Since then, the concept has broadened to include the biological, cognitive, social, and cultural factors that mediate how we understand our internal and external worlds. This study takes the broader view of sense-making. It can be as simple as what happens between a stimulus and a behavior, and it can be as complex as how people and machines interact to access, filter, and process information when making a decision. And then there's a model here. Whatever. Figure 1 offers our model of a sense-making process. It begins on the left with the raw inputs, namely information and experiences. These must pass through external filters such as algorithms or editorial reviews before they reach our senses. After passing through our senses, which tend to privilege some types of information over others, inputs enter our processing systems. These systems stand on two pillars. The two pillars. our innate and trained cognitive abilities and the linguistic frameworks, mental models, and ways of knowing we have acquired through education and experience. The sense that emerges through this process leads to decisions and actions is also feeds back into the world through expressions of or behaviors that affect others. At the same time, the sense we make revises and refines the way we process, for example, by updating mental models or twerking cognitive biases. Why do foresight about sense making? Powerful disruptions to sense making could change where Canadians find information, what and who they trust, and how they tell facts from lies. Changes in our sense making could also affect Canadians' ability to understand and willingness to engage with government policies, as well as their desire to participate in programs. The COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted the importance of sense making in precisely these areas. Basically, they're afraid. Afraid of people losing complete faith in their bullshit. And now they have to implement other ways of controlling that, which ties into their plans that have been in place for a long time anyways, so nothing's really new here. It's just all in your face right from the government itself. Now, that's the only difference. Among other things, these disruptions could affect Canadians' capacity and willingness to act in the face of collective challenges, relationship to the environment, choices about affiliation, lifestyles, parenting behaviors, political and economic decisions. Sense-making is at the heart of challenges to communicating public health information in ways that reach Canadians and encourage their compliance. It is also an opportunity to enhance overall trust in government and academic experts, with long-term implications for Canadians' views on democratic institutions and science. Believe us more! Oh, it's gross. Areas of change. We were already seeing powerful changes in sense-making when the COVID-19 pandemic struck. Many of these changes accelerated and strengthened. Meanwhile, the twin challenges of communicating vital public health information to Canadians and their varied responses to it, I like the way they put it there, highlighted the real-world importance of sense-making. No shit. All right, what's going on here? We got these two mentally ill people sitting on the opposite sides of the bench, afraid to be human. And then it looks like we got a BLM shouting in the faces of the white hogs. Figure 2, areas of change in sense making. Figure 2, we describe some areas of importance change in sense making. We've grouped these changes into 5 categories that reflect and interact with the sense making system: knowledge production and power, digital disruption, shared narratives and experiences, sensing, feeling, and thinking bodies, and mental models and ways of knowing. While the direction and impact of some changes are clearer than others, each may disrupt the sense-making system and should be studied. Knowledge and production and power. Ongoing technological and social developments could disrupt the way we create, distribute, and validate knowledge, as well as the authority of experts in the organization of institutions. So, what do we have here? A child looking at a globe through a camera instead of just looking at the globe directly. Putting a digital filter on it, basically. Authority and transition. Technological and social changes have weakened the power of traditional sense-making authorities, such as the press, academic experts, and government. New sense-making participants, such as social media influencers, have gained greater prominence. These changes have also opened spaces for the voices of excluded and marginalized communities. The erosion of previous sense-making authorities also puts into question the traditional knowledge norms that help us tell real from fake, information from disinformation, and sense from nonsense. So basically, they want to... Well, they already do control the social media influencers, for the most part. They just want to squeeze out any information they don't like, any influencers they don't like. Access to knowledge. Public access to the research ecosystem is flourishing thanks to citizen science initiatives, the open access and open data movements, and efforts to make cultural heritage accessible in digital formats. However, the vast research and information holdings of technology firms remain private preserves. Uneven digital infrastructure may also sustain barriers to cutting-edge knowledge, as could publishers and institutions keen to protect profits derived from intellectual property. Trust in research. Controversy. I keep mispronouncing. I need water. The controversy over the reliability of some social science research could help spread anti-science, anti-expert sentiments among the public. Diminishing public trust in academic research could not only weaken popular commitment to public health directives and climate action, but also reduce public support for government research funding. Fluctuating public trust in health sciences driven by COVID-19 could hurt or boost popular support for research. Production of knowledge. The merging of new digital communications technologies, the breakdown of disciplinary silos, and the spread of new tools and ideas are transforming knowledge creation. As we find new ways to explore the universe and ourselves, we may create knowledge and insights that were once unimaginable and could transform our lives for the better. At the same time, COVID-19 has paused many important knowledge collaborations. Long or permanent disruptions could slow or shift the character of knowledge creation and all the constructive activities it supports. Digital mediated education. As COVID-19 accelerated the shift to online learning, it underscored weaknesses in traditional systems of formal education, which seem to clash with our digitally mediated lives. Access to quality digital infrastructure is now a core concern, given its profound effects on social equity. Digital skills and critical frameworks have become concerns for teachers, learners, and educational planners. Experiencing the pandemic also showed the continuing value of social interactions, physical activity, and nature exposure as supports for learning. Transforming education in response to these concerns could supercharge future generations' sense-making capacities with knock-on benefits for creativity, innovation, and competitiveness. Misinformation marketplace. Creating sophisticated misinformation and disinformation is becoming easier and cheaper. This helps explain why there is so much supply. Demand for such content appears to be growing among a large part of the public as well. Should supply and demand continue to grow, false content could flood the information landscape. Fact and truth could become harder to detect, masking valuable signals in a surge of noise, increasing anxiety about the future and feeding conspiracy theories. Evolution of the media. Aside from the blue chip and public outlets, traditional print and broadcast media continue to decline in the face of competition from giant social media platforms. That said, big platforms are not the only players competing for the attention and revenues. Sprawling networks of small, hyper-local, and hyper-partisan outlets, some with links to political interests or foreign states, are also emerging. This shift in media landscape could bring a revision of journalistic and editorial norms, with inevitable effects on the information available to Canadians. Kind of makes you understand a little bit more why Bill C-10 got passed, right? Controlling that landscape. Geopolitics of knowing. Increasingly confident Asian states are exerting greater cultural and economic influence on neighbors and the world. Africa's most dynamic states could play similar roles in the near future. This could change the global influence of certain sense-making norms and mental models, e.g., neoliberalism, collectivism, democracy. New geopolitical blocs rooted in shared sense-making perspectives may also follow, shifting strategic priorities, diplomatic practices, and trade relations. Digital disruption. Rapid changes in the digital landscape are changing the way Canadians create, access, and process information. This could greatly affect our social lives and institutions. Ubiquitous artificial intelligence. Algorithms shape what we see and engage with online. They are also central to how we deal with complex situations and large amounts of information. Continued advances in machine learning may improve AI's ability to understand context and create original content. Humans may struggle to understand why or how AI makes analytical or creative choices, even as we benefit from new perspectives rooted in non-human logic. Rich in-game experiences, immersive online multiplayer games are becoming deeper, richer, and more engrossing ways of sharing social, aesthetic, and intellectual experiences. What happens in-game and the structure of various game realities might strongly influence how people make sense of their out-of-game experience, if that distinction even continues to hold. That's why gaming channels on all your media platforms like YouTube and DLive and stuff is so heavily pushed. It's all been conditioning. That's why they get top bill, among other degenerate channels. Surveillance and social sorting. Our interactions with online tools, households, electronics, and workplaces, as well as our consumer transactions, involve us in complex systems of big data and surveillance. These can help us make sense of our context, but they can also help others make sense of us for their own purposes. The resulting data can be used to create crucial social knowledge. For example, to track the spread of disease. It can also be used to sort us into groups, evaluate us against criteria, and offer, in brackets, or target us for individualized treatment. In an emerging knowing society, rich data about who and what we should trust can empower us. We might also find ourselves rewarded or penalized according to the judgments of reputation systems. Our ability to make sense of our worlds may increasingly depend on what we can know or understand about surveillance and social sorting and how we react to them. That's basically that Black Mirror episode where Nosedive is the episode name, where the lady is always with her phone getting social media points, a social credit score, that sort of dealy. Oh, it's so creepy. It's right in your face there too. Wonderful. Information overload. Massive amounts of data flowing among multiple channels provide unprecedented access to knowledge. However, they also challenge our ability to absorb and make sense of the information we encounter daily. We may experience overload. I want to say overlord. Overload, fatigue, and anxiety as our minds struggle to cope with floods of digital information. Changing communication practices. The moves from text to voice, search, and from verbal to visual representation disrupt traditional ways of sending, receiving, and interpreting information. We are seeing new forms of expression containing symbolic value, some such as memes. Oh, I hate memes. Sorry, I just think they're just a very easy way to program and change behavior and thoughts and stuff. I think most of you believe that as well. Memes seem unthreatening and have become mainstream modes of expression, Others, such as deepfakes, provoke anxiety about the state of the information landscape. In the future, the new communication norms that evolve from these practices could provoke changes in sensory and cognitive processes, as well as the design of communication networks. Shared narratives and experiences. Shared narratives and experiences sustain our identities and shape our interpretation of the world. Disruptions to either could disrupt the foundations of Canadians' sense-making. Pervasive uncertainty and anxiety. Prior to COVID-19, concerns over changes such as deepening inequality and accelerating climate change were powerful drivers of anxiety. And then they said, hold my beer, and COVID-19 came along. The pandemic offers even more reasons for feeling anxious. It disrupted assumptions about social life, health, childcare, and work. Okay, big asterisk here. COVID-19 didn't do shit to those things. It was all the restrictions that did that. COVID-19 doesn't say, hey, you need to social distance. No. The restrictions say that. Your governments say that. Anyways, just thinking out loud, YouTube. Physical distancing rules transformed rituals such as graduations, weddings, and funerals that can comfort us and help us make sense of major transitions in our lives. Loss of these stabilizing traditions and institutions could amplify collective anxiety, possibly making it a dominant frame for social life. Yeah, no kidding. I mean, like, didn't suicide skyrocket? In turn, this could increase the appeal of conspiracy theories or ideologies that promise the comfort of certainty. There's too many things I could say with that, but I want to move along. Revisions of shared narratives. Shared narratives such as the discovery of the Americas by Europeans or the triumph of science shape interpretations of everyday experiences and information. They also support collective identities, compelling counter-narratives, e.g. post-colonial histories and reconciliation, and collective experiences, e.g. of the pandemic, are challenging these stories and could lead us to revise our shared identities in constructive ways. At the same time, new media business models and changing audience practices are transforming how, where, and with whom we experience the stories that shape much of our sense-making. Abundance of sense communities. Such communities are defined by shared sense-making frameworks, such as religious doctrine, conspiracy theories, or commitment to scientific thinking. The distribution of Canadians among these communities appears to be changing. Certain established sense-making communities, e.g. some traditional religious denominations, are declining. Meanwhile, others, e.g. environmentalism, are growing, and new ones, e.g. the Black Lives Matter movement, are appearing. This could redistribute power among the common frameworks, e.g. neoliberalism, social justice, authoritarianism. People use to understand the world. Nostalgic inertia. Nostalgia for simpler, more certain times may in part explain the popularity of activities such as baking and board games during the pandemic. Prior to that, we saw other forms of nostalgia, such as backlash against digital technologies and growing interest in agricultural lifestyles. Increasing use of nostalgic sense-making frames could make it harder to see and embrace innovative solutions to familiar challenges, such as climate change, and to new disruptions such as the pandemic. Conflicting nostalgias between groups who also disagree about the nature of current challenges could worsen social division. Yes, those people that don't agree with the government and want to get back to the land and improve upon it the natural way, they're going to get right in the way of all this progress. Sensing, feeling, and thinking bodies. Sense making ultimately depends on our senses and embodied processes. It all happens in and through our bodies. Changes in our sensing capacities, bodies, and physical environments could change how we make sense of ourselves, others, and the world. Human enhancement. Digitally enhanced prosthetics, technologies that provide touch feedback, haptics, and virtual augmented reality could extend the range of our physical senses or create entirely new ways of sensing. This could radically transform human sense-making in relation to our built and natural environments, as well as to both digital and organic beings. The roots of social behavior. Emerging research on biology and social neuroscience is clarifying how biological systems and social behaviors interact. New technology can image the brains of multiple people as they interact in real-world situations, revealing the hidden ways we influence one another and how that shapes the way we interpret experiences and information. It could also uncover new ways to nudge human behavior for pro-social purposes of commercial gain. The biological effects of social experience. Social epigenetics is revealing how powerful social experiences such as nurturing and trauma may get under the skin and affect our physiological and psychological development. We are constantly learning more about how our experiences and exposures may change us at the molecular level and modify how our genes are expressed. This could suggest novel approaches to mental health and human development, as well as new design parameters for built environments and human-machine interfaces. Convergence of digital and physical. Digital mediation is changing the ways we relate to objects. Haptics, augmented reality, and virtual reality allow us to experience virtual objects as tangible. If the distinction between virtual and physical continues to fade in ways that privilege virtual experiences, the virtual world could soon rival the physical as a primary frame of reference. People who relate to objects and environments through digital experiences could find the unaugmented physical world deeply uncomfortable. But they might also bring creative thinking to their interactions and physical objects and spaces. The way we see value could also shift, making virtual goods and economies as important as their physical counterparts. Why do you think they locked down people for so long? To get them immersed in the digital world more, obviously. I showed how the VR was exploding during that time. I did several videos on it. They were getting people into the virtual world, avataring them. Yes, I'm just going to keep going. Environments of sense. Even in societies where layers of infrastructure insulate humans from nature, environmental conditions help regulate our bodies and emotions. These factors in turn affect much of our sense-making. Environmental disruptions due to climate change could shake the environmental conditions that support our emotional and physical equilibrium. Climate concerns could feel more urgent when we feel them firsthand. This discomfort could push us towards systems and solutions that promote synergy with nature rather than isolation from it. Alternatively, this discomfort could cause some to double down on their disconnection from natural environments. They turn to the VR world. It's Ready Player One, okay? Just watch that movie if you want to barf for a bit. Mental models and ways of knowing. Mental models and ways of knowing filter and frame our information seeking, activities, and lived experiences. Changes to either could transform the foundations of sense making. Wait, before I continue, I just want to mention, has it been a little hot lately? Have you noticed the kind of heat wave frying us a bit? I don't know about you, but here it's freaking hot. And it usually isn't that freaking hot. And I feel like, maybe they've had a part in that, obviously. I can't say that. So I didn't, YouTube. I'm just thinking out loud. But I mean, a lot of people have to stay inside because it's just freaking hot out. That, maybe they're going to experience that virtual world some more while they try to cool down. I don't know. Anything to keep them from going outside, Last year it was murder hornets when we were taking a little break from the COVID. It's all a pattern. This is interesting. Indigigogy. Some indigenous peoples are using indigigogy, a transfer of knowledge rooted in indigenous traditions, to help the communities prioritize indigenous ways of knowing. This is part of projects to rebuild social systems such as child welfare and education, and to invigorate indigenous cultural expression. While a broad range of indigenous worldviews inform indigigogy, many share holistic worldviews, put people at the center, see both humans and the land as medicine, and evaluate decisions amongst long-term historical future backdrops, e.g. 7 generations. Now, I don't know if I have any indigenous viewers of my work, but maybe you would agree with this, whether or not, you've seen it firsthand, that the indigenous community has been used a lot in pushing this New World Order, mainly in the Agenda 21 it's a corporation in city planning and stuff like that. And it makes sense why there's been so much victimhood perpetrated on the indigenous people. They've had a very troubling past, so it's easy to grab a hold of that victimhood mentality and push it. Normally, I think these people would be just fine. They're strong people. They could get over the past and move on, but they keep getting pressed down by this constant victimhood pressures from social media and the mainstream media and social media on top of that, because it's constantly in the feeds. The constant victimhood, and they've weakened those people. I'm not saying this is a generalized statement from my personal view of it. So don't take it in an offensive way if you're an indigenous person and you're not succumbed to that victimhood pressure. But they definitely have been using them for the agenda. Anyways, moving on. Reconciliation and decolonization. Indigenous peoples express their cultures, values, languages, and ways of knowing in many ways across multiple channels. Indigenous futurism, activism, community development, and scholarship show that continuing vitally of indigenous ways of knowing, increased awareness of indigenous worldviews could help Canadians recognize and reevaluate colonial ways of thinking. Accepting indigenous ways of knowing could inspire new perspectives on political economy, institutional reform, the environment, and social policy. Economics in question. There is dispute, even in mainstream policy conversations, about whether core economic concepts such as GDP, the future discount rate, and externalities are useful. These doubts are growing along with concerns about climate change, the digital transformation of the economy, historically rooted inequalities, and COVID-19's unequal impacts on various parts of society. At the same time, Alternative economic concepts such as the happiness index, zero growth, and sustainable finance are growing in some circles. Shifts in how we make sense of the economy could transform business processes, government revenue and spending policies, and the social conditions that Canadians experience on a daily basis. Shared realities in question. Most healthy, functioning societies live with shared realities rooted in common knowledge norms. While never complete, perfect, or permanent, shared realities help us build the consensus we need to act collectively. In some plausible futures, that common ground fades, allowing competing sense-making silos to multiply, especially online. If groups based on particular sense-making norms cannot understand others' realities, social divides may deepen. In other plausible futures, collective reality becomes too close or confined as powerful platforms. Technology's global powers or dominant ideologies crowd out differing or less powerful perspectives. Since sense-making shapes so much of what people think and do, it cuts across many, if not all, policy domains. Here are just a few policy-relevant questions that emerge as policymakers engage in foresight about the future of sense-making. Education and research. Research funding. How might changes to Canada's information landscape affect the role and aims of government research funding? Skills and literacies. What skills and literacies might Canadians need to make sense of new digitally mediated environments? What new opportunities may arise from training and skills acquisition? Infrastructure. Sense making in public places. How could technology such as this is crazy. I gotta drink water for this one. Hold on. So dry. Sense making in public places. How could technology such as augmented reality change the ways Canadians engage with national symbols and spaces, e.g., monuments, museums, federal buildings, and national parks? How much control, if any, will institutions want to be able to assert over the way we experience those physical spaces? I mean, like, you won't actually go to a national park, you'll just experience it in augmented reality? Like, you're actually just really in a parking lot and it looks like the national park, a national parking lot. I mean, like, can you imagine the freaking insanity of that? Digital tools and infrastructure. Could digital tools and networks become so essential to sense-making in social lives that Canadians consider them essential public infrastructure or even rights? Spaces for public engagement. Could Canadians come to see non-traditional communications environments such as multiplayer video games as spaces for civil life as well as recreational activities? Let's all play a video game, buddies. Come on. Gather around, everyone. That's what we're gonna do. That's a record. You're not gonna play a game of basketball in the court. Let's just get together and play shoot 'em ups online. It's just I don't know. Avatarded. That's all I can say. Avatarded. Economy. Making sense of economy. How will Canadians make sense of the economy and their own economic well-being in the future? What I need to go to bed. What metrics will best help us evaluate policies, track economic performance against collective goals, and grasp new opportunities? Digital goods / consumers. How might Canadians' consumer culture shift as goods transform exchange systems and the way we perceive value? Intellectual property. How might the context for intellectual property rules change as machines start creating cultural products such as art or music and making discoveries on their own? Right. The synthetic music. That's Brave New World for you. It was all synthetic music. The machines made it. Environment. Climate change. In a new sense, making environment In a new sense-making environment, how might Canadians use collective intelligence to make sense of our changing climate and prepare to mitigate and adapt effectively? Making sense in ecosystems. How might new tools and mental models change the way we might make sense of nature and the land? Public communications and engagement. Disinformation and harmful speech. Are our current policy assumptions and tools well suited to a rapidly changing information landscape littered with disinformation, hate speech, and conspiracy theories? Because all those things go together, of course, right? Emergency response. How will Canadians make sense of and communicate about emergencies in the future, both during and after the pandemic? Broadcasting and communication media policy. How may Canadians' needs and experiences in the information environment shift their expectations for public broadcasters and communications policy? Culture and communications. How might shared challenges such as growing uncertainty and anxiety affect the way government addresses communications and supports culture? Geopolitics of sense-making and the influence of foreign states. As Canadians spend more time in digital spaces, including those outside of Canadian jurisdiction, could foreign government interference in their lives change in intensity and style? Narratives and identity. National identity, narratives, and symbols. How might Canadians' attachment to Canada and their relationship to Canadian histories change? The burning down of museums and destruction of statues and the changing of street names. I think you could pretty much say that history is bunk. Brave New World. Indigenous ways of knowing. Besides policy traditionally concerned with Crown Indigenous relations, what other areas of government might be influenced by wider acceptance of Indigenous ways of knowing? Languages. How might the rise of natural language technologies affect the promotion of official languages, continuity of Indigenous languages, and opportunities for individuals who speak languages other than French or English? Well, I know that English will probably not last, nor French. It's too colonial. Won't fit in Canada anymore. Public safety. How might changes in the sense-making environment, especially in how we form sense-making communities, affect the ways Canadians understand and respond to violent terrorism? Governance. Government decision-making and sense-making machinery. How might automated sense-making tools affect government's internal operations and decision-making? What will Canadians consider meaningful access to information in the future? Public trust. How might institutions earn and sustain trust in emerging sense-making environments? Conclusion. Canadians are living through major changes to where they get information, how they filter and interpret it, and who they trust. The future seems likely to hold more changes, possibly even radical disruptions, big or small. These changes could ripple through Canadians' lives, leading to a number of different plausible sense-making futures. As the forces of change identified in this paper intersect, collide, strengthen, or oppose one another, they may remake our shared sense-making system. Important changes to the way Canadians think, act, and plan for the future could follow. We hope early awareness of these changes and their potential implications will help policy professionals as they consider the future policy landscape. As Policy Horizons sense-making study moves forward, we will continue to develop robust policy-relevant foresight that describes plausible sense-making futures and highlights the challenges and opportunities they could present. So areas of change in sense making: knowledge, production, and power. Access to knowledge, digitally mediated education, trust in research, misinformation market, authority and transition, evolution of media, geopolitics of knowledge, of knowing, production of knowledge. Digital disruption, information overload, surveillance and social sorting, changing communication practices, rich in-game experiences, ubiquitous artificial intelligence. Shared narrative experiences, abundance of sense communities, revision of shared narratives, pervasive uncertainty and anxiety, nostalgic inertia. Sensing, feeling, thinking bodies, the roots of social behavior, environments of sense, convergence of the digital and physical, the biological efforts of social experience, human enhancement. Mental models and ways of knowing, economics in question, reconciliation and decolonization, shared realities in question, indigegogy. And that, my friends, is the end of this, well, disgusting piece of New World Order trash. So they go on to basically thank all the people that worked on it, and apparently there's some that want to remain anonymous, so that's fun. I wonder who they could be. Holy crap. That was nuts, and I'm just gonna end it after this because it's took me an hour to go through. I will post the links to that video and this article. And yeah, share this around. Please like, share, subscribe, share my work around. And if you are able to, if you find value in my work, if you find entertainment in my work, please consider subscribing to my Patreon, becoming a member for as low as $2 a month. Or if you don't want to be part of Patreon, you can always buy me a Soma, which is my version of Buy Me a Coffee. And there's lots of cool perks in that one. As well as single-time donations. I have a PayPal, as well as a funding campaign for my big move. I'm getting the heck out of the Dodge here and moving to the East Coast. And it's very stressful. And I'm kind of worried because I'm giving up a steady job for the unknown, but it's the best thing I can do for my family and myself. And I'm trying to get out before the fall. So with that said, thank you very much for your time and attention. This is VenomnymouS reporting from the brave new world. See you next time.